welcome to another episode of Legal Unicorns. Thank you for joining us. This is a very, very important topic of discussion today, where something I'm very excited to be discussing with my guests, and I'll introduce the three of them at the moment. But we've entitled it "The Truth About the Legal Job Market in South Africa." I think, and hopefully my guests as well, think that it's a high time that we really drew back the curtain on exactly what it goes on in the job market, and who better to do it with one of South Africa's top legal recruiters, as my colleague Andy is over there, and two professionals going through the some of the highs and lows of securing the start of a legal career. So delighted to have you with us. I must start with introducing my colleague Andiswa, who I'm delighted has joined me on this podcast today, and it's our first time doing this together. Andy, studying law, has worked with me and the GRM group for about 2.5 years now. And has really, has grown from someone who was working with us in a more administrative perspective, and then was also studying law, and then has grown and grown and grown, and you have really seen the legal job market
100%
firsthand, for people of a similar age group to yourself as well. So your insights are going to be brilliant, and I know that you're going to be asking some questions of our guests as well. We're also delighted to have, and I'm looking over here at the camera here, Isabella Makura, who is, are you soon to be admitted, Isabella, or you have been admitted? Soon to be admitted attorney, who trained with one of Pretoria/Joburg's, or Gauteng, should we say, biggest offices and biggest firms, and has been navigating the job market after finishing articles. And again, delighted to have Mandla Ngidi, who isn't in Durban today, is in Joburg, and again, someone that I've got to know over the last year or so. But you were admitted in 2024, is that right, Mandla?
Yes, that's correct, Rob. Thanks.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you for the three of you joining us. I'm going to turn straight to Isabella, if I may, and ask you if you can just give us a little bit of a background in terms of your journey from law school to admission, and what your expectations were whilst you were doing that for your career, and also once you became admitted.
So I pursued my LLB degree at the University of Limpopo, and I graduated in 2023. Strong academic achievements, often top of my class. It wasn't cum laude as I hoped, but it was definitely something really great. So then I secured articles at a reputable law firm in Pretoria. And to me at the time, I believed that would be a start to a stable legal career, a clear path to one day becoming an associate, perhaps senior associate and partner. And for me, I expected that obviously working hard, being reliable and high performing would then obviously score me retention. And that would be enough for me to become retained. Unfortunately, I wasn't after serving two years of articles. And right now I'm just in the job market. So I'm looking for corporate roles, associate roles, and preferably I want to work in a law firm. I want to do corporate law. I want to draft contracts, work on corporate transactions. And I believed at the time when I was a candidate attorney that if you ticked all the right boxes, you'd be retained. If you had the good marks from if you had work ethic, professionalism, if you were reliable, obviously in terms of working the long hours. And I mean, a lot of candidate attorneys know that you actually have to put in more than just 2 feet. And I think I did that at the time. Unfortunately, I wasn't retained. And here I am right now. I'm awaiting admission as an attorney. And for me, what that looks like right now is just to try and secure a role where I can grow from the infancy of my career and actually become a seasoned professional. And I think that's the ultimate goal for me right now. So crossing fingers for that job.
Yeah, and just before I come to Mandla, from what you've described there, Isabella, and I think Andy will probably agree, very reasonable expectations.
Certainly.
Of where you might head.
Yeah.
You've done well, you've studied hard, you're in a good firm. They seem very, you're working really hard while you're there, very reasonable expectations. So that's, Yeah, we'll get on to keeping the faith very soon, but that seems very reasonable. And Mandla, yourself, your journey, from law school to admission, was it fairly similar to what Isabella's describing?
It was, very similar. Well, of course, coming from I used to call these universities not in big cities like your rural universities, but I came from UKZN. Did very well during my undergrad. Of course, expected a cum laude, but couldn't get one. But it was, sort of a dream come true then to make it to a reputable law firm. And you then obviously start to psychologically prepare yourself of how your path will look like. Finish your articles, score a junior associate role, spend 2-3 years, maybe be promoted. But you really now psychologically prepare yourself to making a career and stable life in that organization. Especially if it's you are doing the type of work that you liked. Like in my case, I really liked what I did during my article. Of course, I worked as hard as I could. To the top of my thinking. I was as professional as I could be. Of course, put extra hours when I was needed to do so, even if not expected. But of course, I took that initiative. So it really became very much disappointing, to not be retained. And of course, going back to what Isabella said, is that you tick most of the boxes, but you still do not get what you thought you would be rewarded with if you tick those boxes. So it sort of became quite, I would say, a very disappointing sort of experience that one has to just take on with them and sort of move on. But yeah, that's how my route from being a student to becoming an admitted attorney has been. It just quite a funny experience, if I may put it that way.
It's a good attitude to have, I think. I just to jump in here, and I'm sure Andy's got a point or two on this as well. One of the things that we discuss a lot in our offices at GRM is the realism of what you guys have gone through, and not just yourselves, but obviously many of your fellow students and colleagues going forward. The realism is of disappointment in this case, and it's not just for you, obviously. I guess it's for your families as well. You build up a certain expectation. That you're going to qualify and it's going to be fine, and there's a big career in Johannesburg and things like that. So there's a lot to navigate in there, I guess. Wouldn't you say, Andy?
Yeah. Like even thinking as well the things that you had to go through, and thinking that, okay, I've secured articles, I've done well at school, but then maybe if I were to ask maybe Isabella, like how was it for you when you were at the position whereby you thought now you're going to maybe be retained and become like a junior associate, having to find out that you're not being retained, like how were you able to navigate through that, like, and the challenges that you had to face, and maybe even how you overcame them as well, or how you are overcoming them?
I think for me, Andy, I am a very faith-based person. And the day I knew, and I'll call them results for lack of a better word, we're going to get our results. I sat in my cubicle and I said to God, if it's for me, then bring it to me. And if it's not, then give me a receiving heart. And I think for me, what worked at the time was a receiving heart, to receive the either or of the news, whether I'm retained or not, how to receive it well. And I said to the partner at the time who broke the news to me that this is not going to stop me. Don't expect less from me right now. I'm still going to be the same Isabella that walked into this department. I'm still going to put in the long hours. I'm still going to get the skills, because at the end of the day, and as much as I want to be retained, I want to be a junior associate and I want to be stable, at the end of the day, I did come to this job to acquire skills, and I think I still wanted to do that and to keep that momentum. And I think that's where a lot of people lose the plot. You get told you're not being retained and then you start slacking. But at the end of it all, you're the one that takes the loss, because they move on, they have another associate, they have other associates taking up the role, but you robbed yourself from gaining the last few, I don't know, the last dose of skills that you could get out of this whole experience. And I think for me, that was the goal at the time. Obviously, it's very gut-wrenching. It's sad. It's depressing. You go through a lot in the phase. And I think for me, what I did immediately I started applying. I didn't wait. I was fixing my CV. Rob, you know this. You looked at my CV a few times.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be a go-getter and to continue getting what I came for, which is the experience. And then eventually I assumed that the
Yeah.
experience would then land me a role, whether it's at the firm where I worked at or another firm. And I think that was just the goal, to
Elsewhere.
end up still being an associate wherever it is, with the necessary skills. And I think it was just a matter of mindset for me at the moment, you know.
Yeah. That's such a really good mindset,
Yeah.
because if you think about it, you remain focused to what you came to do, and at the end of the day, that director is the one who also holds your reference, and when you do land a job, they're going to remember that attitude. And I think your fellow colleagues as well can really take a page out of your book, and to see as well like what kind of attitude and mindset one should have when you're in that situation. So big ups to you, Isabella, and I really hope and pray as well. I'm also very religious that one something will come for you very soon as well. You will land that job. Maybe I'm over to you, Mandla. And when you were in that situation, how were you able to deal and cope with it?
Thanks, Andy. I like the perspective from you and Isabella. Look, of course, the sad news are very disappointing. At some point, you would think,
Yeah.
there was a point where I thought, Ish, you have come so far, Mandla, just to come so far. I had that sentiment for like a day or two, but then, of course, I realized that in any event, when you get that articles offer, the contract is clear. You are only engaged for 2 years. It's a
Two
contract. So
years.
retention is not guaranteed. So when it happens, it's grace
Yeah.
on you. When it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But then what is the key goal? Of course, it could be that I want to be retained, but the key goal would have
Yeah.
always been to work on that admission. And when you work on that admission, not only tick the box, but also come out with the skills. So that's what I did to myself, to say I need to learn as much as I can. Um, for me, when the news came, I think later in October, I had already read the room, so I had already expected the non-retention. So at some point, you don't have to be
Yeah.
delusional. You read the sign, you can really start to spot what will happen and what will not happen, and you psychologically prepare
Yeah.
yourself for that. For me, I looked for the next available opportunity for me as early as March
Yeah.
2023, and I was going to be completing in December 2023. So I wanted to be in the safe spot and in the safe position. If anything changed around
Yeah.
October, it would have changed for the better, but I was already prepared. But then what I did was also to say, okay, now retention is not happening. What are you going to do? Are you going to still maintain professionalism and good work ethic, or are you going to say stuff that I'm already exiting the door anyway? I did the opposite. I believe
Yeah.
you don't have to bend the bridges. Um, because in any event, I saw my first employer, or at least where I did articles, as people who saw opportunity. Who saw potential in me. I could have went to any other law
And
firm, or
give you
whoever could have offered me an opportunity, but
Yeah.
it was not availed to me by any other law firm but by them. So that for me, a sense of appreciation, a sense of understanding that of course they can't keep all of us, but they gave you the opportunity and a stepping stone. I think that drove me to continue working diligently and professionally until the end of my tenure. And I'm grateful that my mindset was along those lines at that point in time.
Yeah.
I tell you what, brilliant responses.
Yeah.
I mean, and not rehearsed. I must admit that they both sound incredibly,
Personal
yeah,
and
personal. Yeah, thanks for that, guys. That was really personal. I think it got me thinking just listening to Mandla there as well. Like you mentioned that nice word, that nice phrase, reading the room, and you started looking early doors. It, it's probably hard to pinpoint, but without picking on that particular firm, because I'm sure the same situation happens at every law firm.
Yeah.
Was there anything in particular that either of you maybe can add to this, that you weren't hitting? Were there targets you weren't hitting, or was there any indication given to you that you're not going to be kept on? I'm just trying to get a sense for anybody that listening, whether there's things that were said, or indicators.
Indicators.
Yeah, indicated. Yeah. Anything?
For me, well, there was one line. I think I should just go first. There was one line that used to come up, um, on every engagement. Well, not every engagement, but most of the engagement. The line when, Mandla, you must learn as much as you can so that when you're not here, you would be, yes. So you must work very hard, learn as much as you can, so that when you're not here, you are not going to struggle anywhere you find yourself. So for me, that was saying, bruh, just be mindful that after 2 years, here you go. And as soon as I started to make sense of that line, I started to act I started to prepare myself for the exit.
Did you have something similar, Isabella?
Actually, not. I think the news hit me that hard because I was expecting retention. I think I know what I did. It was 2 years. I know the amount of effort I put in. I know I was reliable. At 7 o'clock, when people are at a restaurant at 7 p.m. on Friday, Bella's in the office. Late, crazy hours. I did everything I could. And for me, when the news came, I was absolutely shocked. I actually thought I would get it. I think even the room itself, it didn't change towards me. It was always just positive and, Bella, let's gun for this. Bella, let's do this. Bella, let's do that. Can you do this? I was always on my A game. And I think when the news came, I was completely shocked. And I still have questions today, but I've just decided to just move on from it and take it as a learning curve, you know. So I didn't
Well,
get
then
any.
I'm sorry for asking you to be on this podcast and have to relive it. I do apologise. If I can, and Andy, I'm sure you've got some points here as well.
Yeah.
Both of you, again, thanks for giving us your insight there. But two very different experiences, I suppose. And where, I mean, I was smiling, but not like in a bad way when you were talking there, Mandla. I was like, I'm wondering how early they started saying this, like, and did they use the term when you're not here, which is kind of all right, do I even get a chance?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that wasn't too early in your tenure, and I hope. But it's interesting. You were maybe not to know. You'd say that you can see the writing on the wall, and you read the room, as it were. But again, you put your effort in. You turn up every day. You're putting your work in. You're learning. But it's something for people to watch out for.
Yeah.
It's certainly the many thousands of lawyers, young lawyers that will come in after you. Watch that wording carefully. How are they? How are those principles being with you? And then obviously Isabella having a completely different experience.
Putting in all of your effort, spending like late nights as well, it's almost guaranteed that you are going to like get that retention, and having to deal with like everything, the rejection, and you both, including myself, are fairly young as well and have like our lives ahead of us. So even thinking of maybe planning, things that you want to achieve, maybe buying a car, a house, starting a family, and the financial pressures as well, and maybe even emotional, like how are you able to cope with that, with the prolonged job search and the like spanner in the works where you now thought that you had this secured, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a state of precarity almost. So how are you dealing with those complexities and difficulties?
Yeah, come to Isabella first on that if we can.
I think for me, Andy, it's like I said previously, mindset is everything. And I've always known myself to be a very resilient young woman. And I've had a lot thrown at me. When you do articles, there's a lot of things that happen in the corridors, that happen at work, that tend to, you grow crocodile skin and you grow thick skin. And for me, it was just another one of those experiences. Oh, shoot, I didn't get it. Okay, what's next? That's the question I asked myself. And I think emotionally, you tend to internalize a lot of it. You start thinking, am I not capable? Am I not seen? Was it not enough? And it starts becoming more of a you thing than it is about even things that have to do with operational requirements and business needs of the firm. You may be great, but it could literally just be the business needs of the firm and whether the firm has capacity to retain or not. And I think for me at the time, I found a lot of peace in the fact that when the news was broke to me, it was made to seem like it was just based on business needs. And at the time, they didn't need more junior associates in that team because they already had a few junior associates and they needed more senior associates. So I think I found a lot of peace in that. But emotionally, I'll tell you, it's a roller coaster, and one always needs to stay the course. And I've always believed in staying the course. Staying the course now with unemployment, it's not easy. I have bad days, and I think we just keep going on. That's the beauty of it all. You learn, you take a few lessons, and you just keep moving on. And I think that's always just been how I do things. It's all about the mindset and all about what you think, because what you think you become. And if it's you're thinking all negativity, there's not going to be any progression. So I've always tried to be very optimistic about everything.
Brilliant point. Brilliant. And Mandla?
Thanks, Isabella. Look, I think from the financial point of view, job search is just quite difficult. But I think what I did in my time and what I can always advise another candidate attorney out there, save as if there is no tomorrow. I know some people spend as if there is no tomorrow, but my advice is save as much as you can, because you do not know what awaits you after 2 years or 6 months down the line if you're 6 months away from finishing your articles. I always pride myself for having tried to save enough, which was able to last me for the first 6 months on my job search. I started to feel the pressure from June last year. That's when I started to see, man, the saving pocket is running out. I think if something doesn't pop up or come your way right through, you're going to have a problem. So from the financial perspective, save as much as you can. But unfortunately, for some people out there, they don't get enough to be able to save. So I cannot imagine how one can then survive after that, because I cannot compare where I was based on some XYZ law firm elsewhere, which does not pay to the same range. So I cannot then imagine someone from that XYZ firm in the very same predicament or position as I would have been a few months back. But job search is very taxing. It is very expensive. So one tries to prepare for it, but some people are really just seeing it through each day. Yeah.
Definitely. And Rob, if I can just add, Mandla,
Yeah, please.
People should be open-minded in the job search. Obviously, I stayed in Pretoria when I served my articles, and I had to open up my mind to the possibility of moving home, because it had to be, it was a smart financial decision. So just on the finances point, you should be open-minded. Perhaps cut what you can, especially if you know you're not being retained. Cut what you can on top of saving, and I think it'll help you a great lot. And look, there's no shame in going home. Home will always be home, and if that helps, it's better to stay home than to pay rent of 7-8K in Pretoria while you're still on the job hunt. So where you can cut costs, do that. I think it brings great relief. It definitely brings great relief.
Yeah, really, really good points made by both of you there. Really, cut what you can.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't change as you get older, I can promise you as well, as life gets more expensive. I've got a couple of things I want to ask, and I know Andy has as well. But one quick question, because it's about law school, and then the other one is about any stories or anecdotes you can share regarding your own personal job searches so far. And I've got 20 odd years experience of helping people get jobs, so I've heard all the horror stories, so I'll add a few in as well. But it's probably a too simple a question to answer, but the three of you have, you two went through law school, you're still doing it, Andy, as I know. Do you think that the law schools set you up correctly for the job market? That goes to all three of you. We'll start with Bella.
I don't think so, honestly. I don't think so. I think you learn a lot of the theoretical stuff and a lot of how law looks like in practice, but you're not charged up for surviving in the world out there. And I think that then goes much to the kind of content you consume, the kind of people you rub shoulders with. And I think for me, I've survived thus far because of the kind of people I rub shoulders with. And these are people, Rob, you're an example of that. If I look at your posts and whatnot, it does give me motivation to keep going. So I don't think law school actually prepares you for that. I don't think so at all. 0%.
Brilliant. I mean, yeah. I mean, Mandla, Andy, your points as well, but I agree with the 0%.
But
with
Very
Isabella.
vivid.
Mandla?
it's definitely 0%, Rob. Law school doesn't really prepare you for the job market. And on top of that, what I have observed across the country, all law schools, they give one perspective of the type of a lawyer that you should be. Everyone is just being fed to
Yes.
become an attorney, and that's it. The only thing that they do, you would see sometime in March, April, sometime in June, July, these career workshop by big law firms or whichever law firm, and that's the only perspective they sell to students, or the least information they give. And I don't think that is enough. I had always, over time, I believe there are so many beautiful opportunities out there that a law student can explore while they are still looking for a CA position. So, but now everyone is fixated that I need to do articles and be an attorney. And all other beautiful
Yeah.
opportunities, everyone closes their eyes on those opportunities. And the thing is, when you are at law school, you don't know much and you don't know enough, and you have not made so many connections that you will realize of these ample opportunities. So, law school, 0%, I agree.
Sure.
Brilliant. Andy, your
Yeah.
thoughts? I mean, obviously, you've seen it from both sides. You've been a
Yeah.
student studying law in a law school, but
Yeah.
you've also worked deep into the recruitment market. So,
Yeah.
what are you seeing?
I absolutely agree with Isabella and Mandla. You guys have captured this beautifully. I think as I'm studying as well, but also working at GRM, I'm getting to see the reality that these students, or myself as a student as well, are really faced with one option: finish your 4 years, thereafter find articles, get admitted, and that's it, But working at GRM, I'm seeing the other side of it, that there's so much. There's in-house, there's legal tech, there are so many other things that students can actually go into as well. And I think it also is one thing I wanted to mention, or even ask as well, Isabella and Mandla, on if you guys have thought about other alternatives. But before I get there, thinking that within the law school, like I've been privileged as well to work with Ambi within GRM, and Ambi basically is a skills matching platform that allows lawyers to put in their details, sign up, and thereafter you get opportunities that come to you, whether they are in practice, whether they are in-house, whether it's even fractional work as well, but really like seeing that there are other alternatives. And I think working at GRM has been the biggest blessing for me. I'm not saying it because Rob is here, but it's actually helped me see as well what I can do with my legal degree once I finish it. You don't just have to be a lawyer. Yes, it's beautiful, and I know, Isabella, you are determined to practice, and that's good for you if that's what you want, But there's so many law students. I think Rob and I were doing the math a few days ago and thinking of the numbers. They just don't correspond. The people who finish university and expect to get articles as opposed to the number of CA positions available is like, it's crazy actually. The reality is not everyone is going to get it, but how is then the university preparing the students for that reality, and helping them see beyond that. Even as I start my first year, I know what I'm going to face in the job market. So again, I also echo with the 0%.
Well, look, thank you to the three of you for being so honest as well. And it follows a conversation I had with Jordan Furlong, who's a Canadian law firm and law industry forecaster and analyst, the other day. And he, I went into in fact, you can find it on YouTube. And I was very kind about law schools, and I said, obviously they've got trouble. He just tore me right into me and just said exactly the same as you guys. But it's really important to hear it from people in the market, and they have a difficult position, right? Law schools, because they are, they often, the people in there have not worked in the job market. Let's be honest. That's number one. Secondly, they are a business, right? So, whether we like it or not, they need as many students signing up as possible. I mean, who's going to sign up if you knew the real numbers? if you knew that 5,000 people are graduating every year in South Africa from a law school, but there's only 1,000 CA positions, no one's going to sign up.
Yeah.
And therefore the university is going to lose money. So I'm not saying that for any minute that they're not telling the truth. It's just, if you then went out and said that, no one would sign up. So I think, I think we all share the same thing. And one of the things that we do and we have done, and Andy and I were there last week at UWC, we're telling all the universities, get us in. So there's an alternative view to Mandla's point there about March, April, June, July, when they have the career and, the law firms come along and say, we're amazing, come and work for us. They're really only looking for the 1%, aren't they?
Yeah.
And we go in and we tell, we have this type of conversation.
The reality of the job search. Yeah.
Although in the presentation we gave the other day, I spelt reality wrong, which I only realised when it was like 20 foot high up on the screen, but that was my bad. But look, that's really important. That's a really important point. And I think that's something that your message is there, the three of you, getting it to some of the younger generation, or maybe those who are students now, is get your information about the job market from outside the university.
Yeah.
You wanted to dive in with another question.
On that, I was thinking as well, like I'm seeing of maybe all of the difficulties that you have faced within job search, and trying to secure maybe like the next role as a junior associate and so on. Have you thought of exploring about other maybe opportunities, maybe going in-house?
I think I'm in the same basket as Mandla when it comes to this. I've had a couple of interviews where I was asked if I would consider moving in-house. And my answer was always, I'm in the infancy of my career and I can't set stone on one field of law right now. There's so much to explore, there's so much to do, and I'm 100% open to it. I'm 100% open to exploring positions in compliance or consultancy, or like Mandla said, corporate advisory roles. And I think for me, the main point is to just find a role where you can still apply your legal thinking, even if it is without formal legal practice, the traditional route. And I've thought of pivoting into that space. I have applied to certain roles in that space, and I'm definitely open to it. But I think ultimately the goal remains to remain close to law, so that when and if I do decide to come back to practice, that the door is slightly open for me. So yes, I'm open to it, but nothing that is too far from formal legal practice. So still compliance, still banking, still advisory, so that one day if I decide to come back to practice, I can.
Yeah, I think the other thing to bear in mind as well is that is where the career is going. Like, we are in the midst of a big change in regards to the way that legal services are being delivered with the advent of technology and AI in particular.
Yeah.
And, one of the things we were saying to the students at UWC is embrace this, read as much as you possibly can, because the associate role in 3 years' time might not look like the associate role now. So, yeah, I think you both give a really nice message there in respect of opening yourself up. Can I just ask, I mean, again, you may not, something might not jump to your mind in particular, but again, I want to try and give the listeners an idea of things and pitfalls and things that they might have faced in the job market. Now, is there anything that either of you can share in respect of things that have gone like really badly? If things that maybe you thought you were going to get a job and then you didn't, or you turn up for an interview and then no one was there, or is there anything that you guys can share?
I think I'm getting so much anxiety from this question alone. I have two experiences to share, very short. I interviewed for a role. At the time, I was still a candidate attorney. I knew I wasn't being retained, so I interviewed for a role, and it felt quite promising. It went really well. They gave me an assignment to do in everything, and I was acing it. Everything was great. Until today, I haven't heard from them. And that is, I think, 5 months later. I followed up via email. They haven't gotten back to me. We did the interview. I did the assignment. Everything went well. I was recommended for the role. Until today, I haven't heard back from them, not even so little as a regret, we regret to inform you email. And I think it really shattered me. And this one is a bit funny because it really, really hurt my feelings. I spent almost 24 hours crying, but I went to an interview, and one of the partners said, "Oh, you weren't retained because you're not good enough." Bomb drops, and I was lost the entire interview. I zoned out. I was done. I knew this is not for me. I knew that no matter what, I have no interest in this job anymore. And it really, really broke my heart. It was gut wrenching, and there's a lot of other horror stories. I have so many, but these two are definitely top two.
Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're too far away from Polokwane to come and give you a hug. So yeah, don't go through them. But that is well. Look, I mean, when you said that, my first reaction was shock. But then I immediately thought, well, at least they showed their true colours before you joined.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, why say that to a young professional?
Who's giving
even
her
if
all.
even if you're thinking it,
Yeah.
just don't say it. Like, I mean, there's no benefit to the person sitting in front of you to tell them that's your opinion.
Yeah.
They have no idea what was going on back at the big firm, and why, that is pretty disgusting. But also those instances that you've just described, and thank you for sharing. These are the things that you just don't expect when you're going into the job market, right? I mean, you just don't think.
Things that you can't even
you
prepare
can't even prepare for
Yeah.
it, really, can you?
Yeah, they just hit you while you are
I mean,
at
I've
it.
heard some similar stories, but those ones really, they take the biscuit, as they say in the UK. They're to be told something like that. I mean, to be honest, your first story about never hearing back, obviously, as a recruiter, we never hear back from anyone. And then usually the candidate, the lawyer, blames us. So we go, we haven't heard anything. They've disappeared.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that is excusable. I mean, I think everybody... Look, it's easy enough for me to say, but Andy will hopefully attest to this. Is one of the things that I've learnt in my career, my corporate career, is try to be as honest as possible.
Yeah.
With people, and that goes a long way. And if someone doesn't get the job, just send, like you just said there, Bella. Just send me a "we regret to inform you" email.
Yeah.
Tell them the truth.
I think maybe just to jump on that as well, like one thing that Rob has taught me as well is, especially within recruitment, is that respond.
Yeah,
respond. And it's something I'm really working on a lot, but I've also improved as well, because putting myself on the other side, there is someone who's depending on this job and this response, and even if I don't have an update saying we're still waiting for them to come back to us, it gives a lot of hope, but you also know where you stand as well. And even thinking as well, like if you've gotten the job, of course, happy days, but even if you haven't as well, going back and sharing. And I think one thing I often do now as well is saying, hey, maybe work on 1, 2, and 3. Maybe try and sharpen this, because the clients also will give us feedback. Wow, that's really good days when you receive some feedback, But when they do as well, like I think the least that I could do as well is telling my colleague that, hey, try and work on this. Maybe next time do that and do that. Those things go like a very long way as well. And I think maybe just on that as well, if I can ask, I know we're maybe like nearing towards the end of our discussion, like looking back within your young careers thus far, is there anything in particular that you would have loved, maybe like the law firms or places that you have interviewed at, like to do in order to support you? So maybe, for example, like them giving you certain like tips or like encouragement or whatever it may be to like make the journey a little bit more smoother. If you have any like recommendations that they can also take as well within their processes.
And you can't see Andy, so you're gonna have to direct that to someone.
Yes. Maybe let's go for Isabella. If like there's something looking back that you think could have maybe helped a little bit more. Yes, maybe the retention still wouldn't have happened, but like some support that you would have loved to receive within the process.
You mean obviously from my previous firm, right, Andy?
Yes, or even like from interviews as well. Or yes.
I think I'll answer this question in twofold. from firms that are not retaining, if they do have the capacity, I think it's always great to keep on candidates as associate designates until they are admitted. At least you know you're letting someone go and they can stand on their feet, or they at least have something to show for it. They're not just awaiting admission. You know, you're
Yeah.
giving them a stone to step on. I think that would be great. I think there are a few firms in Sandton that do that. Some still don't, but I think that really, I've noticed it really does help the candidates. But just insofar as the interview process is concerned, I think I'm entirely big on communication. I think especially if someone has interviewed for a role, it's important to at least extend that courtesy and, like you said, Andy, keep them in the loop, give them an update. It gives me a lot of reassurance.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not just having a one-way email of me following up all the time. I think it can trigger a lot of anxiety. It's an emotional roller coaster. And I think that support is, it's so little, but it's so big to someone
Yeah.
who's actually in the job market and looking for a job. I think just the communication, if that could be better, I think would go an extremely long way.
Yeah.
Goes back to communication, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
There's good communication and then there's bad then there's bad communication. I mean, you know, telling someone we've got a better candidate is not, you know, maybe rephrase that slightly.
Yeah.
I think you know, I mean, I know that Andy's got and you know, wants to touch on as well your plans for the future individually, but I've got to say, you know, the way that you guys individually have handled your situations, I mean this really, I really do mean this. You're both incredibly mature. You're both incredibly, I mean, any law firm would be lucky to have you, to be honest. I really mean that. I think, you know, I genuinely mean that. And obviously, you both know how many tens of thousands of lawyers I've met over my career, and I really mean it. You know, you guys speak eloquently, you speak clearly, you know, I think you've obviously been armed with certain information when you come into the job market that really, well, not enough. You're not really given a better picture, but whatever you both decide to do and whichever direction you're going to go in, you're going to be a massive success, and I really mean that.
Yeah.
I think the key is we always try to give people a very clear understanding of exactly what's going on in the law market.
Yeah.
Right? The law market here in South Africa is incredibly fractured. It is, you know, splintered. Yeah, 15,500 law firms. You know, only 1,000 or so CA positions every year. Most of the law firms in this country are tiny, one man, one woman bands.
Yeah.
You know, there is the advent of AI coming on and technology, which I think is really made for your generation, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to speed things up. It's going to take away the billable hour and move it to more of a volume-driven service, which is great if you like working hard. You know, and I think, you know, you know, it's easy enough for me to say keep the faith, but we are obviously in regular contact. We're going to be doing everything we can to help you as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, have you got any immediate plans, either of you, Bella or Mandla, in terms of your next step, your future plans?
Okay. I think for me right now, it's still a job hunt, obviously. I'm putting myself out there. Rob, you know this, I'm very popular on LinkedIn, trying to show my face, and hopefully someone spots me. I'm still finishing off my Master of Laws degree. It's one thing that I'm focusing on. I'm using that time. And honestly, I'm just crossing fingers for a job. There's nothing more that I think I can do. I am looking into possibly volunteering with this free time that I have. Right here in Polokwane, I'll be at home, just volunteer to gain some experience and do something meaningful with my time, maybe add something to my CV. But I didn't want to go that route because I believed in myself so much, and I thought obviously by now I would have a job. But I think it's something that I'm definitely considering. And yeah, I'm crossing fingers that it doesn't have to get to me volunteering, obviously. Still looking into branching out into in-house roles, applying here and there. And I think that's just the bulk of what I'm doing right now. Just looking and keep looking.
Brilliant. I honestly believe you've both got an incredible future ahead, and something will be very, very close.
Yeah.
Andy, any closing words from you?
I think I really enjoyed this experience, and speaking as well to like colleagues who are within the job market, but also like helping out as well other people, maybe even your fellow colleagues who might find themselves in the same situation. Yeah, I think for me, I really enjoyed the experience, and yeah, let's keep in touch, and let's see as well how we can help each other as well, even through these discussions and practically as well. And for me, I'll continue growing at GRM, and yeah, thank you so much, Rob.
No, brilliant. Well, thank you to all of you. Yeah, okay, we'll wrap it up there because Mandla looks like he's having some technical issues. But thank you very much for joining me and Andy today, Isabella, Mandla. Really, really appreciate your honesty, your openness. Something is definitely around the corner, and we'll be doing everything we can to help you as well. So for now, thank you very much. And we will end right there. Thanks very much.